지금부터는 오늘 두 번째 글로벌 코오퍼레이션 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 저희는 U.S ROK Cross-Border Innovation이라는 주제로 Sue An AMCHAM Head of Business Development 오셨고요. 제프리 존 김앤창 법률자문서 Foreign Attorney 오셨고요. 또 빅터 오 TactileAI CEO님 오셨고, Clint U 비즈니스 캔버스 co-founder and head of business 이 네 분을 모시고 함께 패널 토크로 진행해 보도록 하겠습니다. 영어로 진행될 예정이라서 혹시 필요하시면 그 통역 리시버는 보시는 오른쪽 뒤에서 받아보실 수 있습니다. 그럼 네 분의 패널이 이미 올라와 계시네요. 네, 큰 박수로 이야기 한번 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 이제 모더레이터이신 수안님께 마이크를 넘기도록 하겠습니다. 네, 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the 2022 Global Startup Festival, U.S ROK Cross-Border Collaboration, hosted by the American Chamber of Commerce in Korea. My name is Sue An, and I'm the head of business development at AMCHAM, and I'm very excited to host this special session on conducting international business. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our friends at COMEUP, Sungjin Choi, Derek Kang, Josh Choi, Hezin Cho, and Luna Moon for hosting this phenomenal stage. AMCHAM represents over 800 member companies and affiliates who are major stakeholders in the international business community. And in being so, we have recently launched the American Business Center, or the ABC program, that helps U.S. SMEs enter the Korean market. And already we have several U.S. companies on board, as well as corporate sponsors, to have connected with AMCHAM in being able to do business in Korea. And it'll be even more powerful to see a lot more companies expanding into this part of the country in helping Korea becoming the regional business hub of the Asia-Pacific region. In the process of finding U.S. companies exploring the Korean market, we have also built an active partnership with representatives from 16 different states, including senators, governors, and mayors, as well as economic development offices and chambers of commerce, to help provide a sound platform for Korean companies and affiliates interested in connecting with the U.S. counterparts. I am pleased to host this outstanding panel discussion with leaders representing some of the largest business collaborations to come out of the U.S. and Korea. It is my honor to host this and share the stage with none other than Jeffrey Jones, Victor O, and Clint U. And for a brief introduction, yes. Jeffrey Jones is a respected member of the international business community and has served the people of Korea and the U.S. throughout his entire career. Jeff is currently the foreign attorney at Kim and Chang, as well as the president at the Ronald McDonald House Charities of Korea and the chairman of the Partners for the Future Foundation. And among his other lofty titles, Jeff is most certainly known to be a true champion of cross-border collaboration and partnerships, here to talk to us on how to establish a sound business practice across cultures and landscapes. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Sue. Wow, nice to be here, and so many. 영어로 해야 되니까 조금 부담스럽네요. 그래서 이해해 주시고 혹시 제 발음이나 낱말 이상하면 좀 양해를 부탁해 드리겠습니다. 감사합니다. So we're here to talk about startups and primarily how to grow your startup in a cross-border situation. Because if you can go cross-border, whether from the U.S. to Korea or Korea to the U.S., you can greatly increase your sales, your expertise, your understanding of markets, and probably find a lot of good people. So it's really a fantastic idea to be thinking about going to a new market, particularly Korea or the U.S. So we're going to talk about how to do that, We're going to talk about things you need to be careful about, things you need to understand, and hopefully it's useful for you. So thank you, Sue, for hosting this event, and glad to meet Clint and Victor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Victor O is the founder and CEO of TactileAI, a U.S. startup that has flown all the way from the San Francisco Bay Area to join us on being a representation of a U.S. company that already has immense reach in the U.S. and is expanding into the Korean market. And for anybody in the audience that is interested in a U.S. company that is fast and forward-thinking, look no further. Welcome, Victor. Welcome to Korea. And please, if you may, could we get a little brief introduction on your company?
Thank you, Sue, for the introduction, and thank you, COMEUP, for having me. So TactileAI is building a rapid A/B product testing platform for the beauty and personal care industry. So it's our vision to help beauty brands launch the best products, basically using a data-driven approach with customer data.
Thank you. And Clint Yu is the co-founder and head of business at Typed, a Korean startup that has been recognized as the fastest growing SaaS company in Korea, the first Korean SaaS startup to win TechCrunch Disrupt Battlefield Top 200, and the very first Korean company to reach the #1 product of the day on Product Hunt. It goes without saying that we should all be on the lookout for him and his company and more successes to come. So Clint, a brief introduction on your company, please.
Thank you, Sue. Really, everyone, it's an honor to be here on this stage sharing about our experience as a company. Typed is a document collaboration tool that serves as your team's second brain. We are revolutionizing basically the paradigm of knowledge management, where right now everything is saved in folders. We are creating a network where everything is saved relationally to one another so that we solve the issue of losing files, having to search for them. Basically, we're building a recommendation engine that overcomes manual search.
Thank you very much. And I have personally sought after our panelists today for their expertise and experience on how to do global partnerships and collaborations. As a Korean American, having been born in Korea, I've gotten out of here in kindergarten and been raised in the United States. Anybody from Texas? Hello. And I've come back to my motherland here about a decade ago. It is truly a full circle experience. And that being said, I look forward to a great dialogue today with all of you and sharing their insights on the range of subjects relevant to you all. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being on the stage. And let's begin the AMCHAM Cross-Border Collaboration session. And to start us off, a brief word from you, Jeffrey, on how you have spearheaded the efforts to lead the U.S.-Korea Business Alliance alongside Kim and Chang.
Thank you, Sue. So our basic philosophy is if we want to succeed, you got to have a bigger market. Korea is relatively small. The United States is relatively big. But even within those markets, there are market segments. So each company serves a particular market segment. Victor serves beauty companies. Clint serves people who use a lot of documents. Those are very specific, defined market segments. And you can saturate your market segment in any country very quickly. And so going to a new country across the border can help you find a much larger market segment very quickly. And that's what ABC is all about, the American Business Center. We're here to help U.S. companies achieve new market segments in Korea. We introduce people to potential distributors, customers. We get you into the market so that you stay out of trouble. And we help you establish and hire a new team because the team is very critical. And so basically we do all of that to help U.S. companies get into Korea. but we're doing the same in terms of introducing Korean companies going to the U.S. So that's what ABC is all about, and that's what we want you to be thinking about, how to increase your market segment.
Thank you. And what extraordinary work you've done in partaking in that movement. And now I'm interested to see how this relates to our panelists, Victor and Clint, as we discuss their experiences on doing cross-border business. And regarding global expansion, for Victor, I'm particularly interested in to see what excites you about Korea and what motivates you to enter this market.
Yeah, I think for our company in particular, it's sort of a unique situation because we're in beauty care, or we're serving the beauty care industry, and Korea is a global hotspot and a hub for a lot of K-beauty became such a big trend in the U.S. So I think for that we're super excited to be here, and it's almost necessary for us to have business in Korea. And another part that's sort of unique to maybe our story is that we're a U.S.-based company. So I'm a Korean American, but our first investor is actually from Korea. So we are backed by Spring Camp, which is the early stage fund underneath Naver. So even kind of this story is a little bit unique to us, but it's also sort of exciting because a lot of it maybe was luck, but it helps us also do business or make the right connections or network in Korea as we do business here.
And what does connecting with other entrepreneurs like Clint help you in doing that global expansion?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing is who you know. Anywhere you do business, it's really about the people that you're connected to. And for me, as a first-time founder, I think there's something very special about meeting other founders. There's something that words cannot describe, but when we see each other and meet each other, there's a lot we can learn from the way that he's done business, the way that he's made partnerships, the way that he's raised funds. So yeah, I think in that way, it's always great to meet new founders and learn from them and learn from their path.
Excellent. And Clint, you having been established as the authoritative figure on the entrepreneurial space, on the go-to-market strategies for early startups especially, what roles have you played in helping international companies like Victor be able to enter the Korean market?
Yeah, so I mean, we work, so Typed actually serves, a lot of our customers are startups. So just by the nature of that business, we are constantly in conversations with startups. And whether that be Korean or from Vietnam or Philippines or UK or America, I think at the end of the day, the heart of the problem is everyone goes through the same problems, right? It's not just about go-to-market, it's also about fundraising, especially in a market situation like today. It's about team building. It's about expanding cross-border. It's about, through that problem, like building a team that is away from your local headquarters. And what we have been able to provide, at least for companies that are coming from outside of Korea to Korea, is that there are certain aspects about the Korean startup ecosystem that is unique compared to any other places. For example, fortunately, I was just in Singapore and Vietnam and the US, respectively, and was able to try to figure out what is different from here to there. And I do think that the startup ecosystem here is very much active and very much dynamic and very much well-financed, which means that there are programs that are either run by the government or debt financing or VC structures that can actually be much more supportive of startups compared to even the American market. So introducing companies outside of Korea to those programs and helping them, basically guiding them through how we went through that experience, I think that alone has helped a lot of other companies that are trying to come here as well.
And you're particularly known to have expanse reach across all sectors, and especially with your connections and experiences, this lands rightly on the topic of partnerships. Partnerships beyond the entrepreneurial realm and the startup realm to reach to the corporate level and, as we like to call it, the giants. So Clint, that being said, how have you been able to grow your network and your distribution channels?
Yeah, so Typed works with Google to a larger extent in various areas. And I think when you're an early stage startup, you have to face the fact that there are things that you simply cannot do because you are early, because you are small, regardless of how much financing you can make at that stage. The kind of distribution that Google can provide for a startup like us versus what we can conjure up for ourselves is exponentially different at scale. And I think this is where you have to start thinking strategically about, well then, why would they distribute your product for you? Like what is it in them, for them, that you can provide as a startup? Oftentimes that is really difficult to think about, but oftentimes there are answers. You know, corporates and tech giants like Google or Naver are literally giants, right? They want to do things, but they're too slow. And that's essentially the idea of, you know, blitz scaling by Reid Hoffman. Like, the biggest asset of a startup is that you can move fast because you're small. And how long can you actually leverage that advantage of yours? And you have to, there is something, I think, always that a startup can offer to a large corporation that they would really benefit from, but you have to do a lot of research with talking from the insiders about whether that value proposition is actually feasible or tangible or actually beneficial to those companies. So we have been, since from the very beginning, thinking about those strategies and validating those concepts over and over again. I think we've had at least over 50 meetings with different Googlers to finally be able to launch an official partnership. And I think at the end of the day, what the lesson we've learned is that they do want to work with you. They do want to take benefit from startups and their agile activities. So you just have to find the right answer to get there.
And you've mentioned the word insiders, which I find very interesting because there's no better person to speak on the partnerships with large corporations than Jeffrey right here. And from your experience at Kim & Chang, what kind of an advice can you give to our startups here on the best approaches for early stage startups to connect with these large corporations?
Thank you. Yeah, building your network is crucial to your success from a variety of factors. One, you heard Clint say he works with Google. Okay. Already you're thinking, oh, he's a success. Because his name is associated with Google, you're thinking, wow, then you've made it already. So if you can build a partnership with a big name, however that partnership is, it gives you immediate credibility and ability to access your market. The other thing that is so critical to building a network is to go out and meet people. You have to meet people all the time. And you should be collecting tons and tons of name cards. And if you're not meeting people, you're not going to, there's no way you can build your network. So you got to go out and meet people. If you want to go cross-border, unfortunately, you're going to have to be able to speak like these two guys. English is pretty important. And it's kind of important in Korea to be able to speak Korean. But it's not even as critical to speak Korean as it is to speak English outside of Korea. Because you can kind of get by in Korea, but you cannot get by outside of Korea without English. So learning English should be, and you don't have to be fluent. 의사소통만 되면 돼요. 아주 간단하게. Now, 뭐, let's go. 간단하게 말해도 돼. So don't worry about speaking like the Sue, Clint, and Victor. The other thing I'd like to say is when you are building your partnership, and this has to deal with funding as well, it is extremely important you keep your promises. Your promises are everything. And I don't care what kind of promise it is. If you say you're going to show up on Tuesday, show up on Tuesday. If you say you're going to call somebody by Thursday, call them by Thursday. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, I don't care what it is, do it. And keeping your promises will go extremely far in building a network, getting funding, and making your employees have trust in you. So the concept of integrity and keeping your promise is vital to building a network.
Thank you, Jeff. And all this information taken, how do you then plan on maximizing your time in Korea, Victor?
Yeah, I think one thing I mentioned before in the intro is like how important it is to meet the right people, like network, and we kind of reiterating a lot about the importance of network. One thing that's unique about Korea, at least for me, that I've experienced doing business in Korea and in the US, is that the Korean ecosystem is so much smaller, right? So that network is very small. And so if you talk to one investor, everyone knows, right, what you said. It's, you talk to one person, the whole network knows. And so I think it becomes that much more important in Korea to get that introduction, for example, by the right person, right? So you can get an introduction to someone through probably someone within your network, but that introduction has to be from the right person, and that makes such a big difference in setting up the right conversations or the right opportunities. So working with like AMCHAM, it's kind of a really strong opportunity for us to have that foundation of a strong introduction to either an investor or to a potential customer. Yeah, and also the startup ecosystem is super small. So usually, you know, the great startups are working with the great investors or working with great clients. And so having your network of like-minded founders and then leveraging that network to make those introductions, I think it makes a really, really big difference, much more than in the US, for sure, about who you get that introduction from.
Right, and we've mentioned the word network a lot. And speaking of that, then comes the matter of fundraising. So Clint, would you mind sharing with us where you are in your fundraising rounds and the secret to how you got there?
So Typed, we were founded in July 2020. Ever since, we're a little bit unique because we've raised the current round that is closing at the end of this month successfully is our fourth round. So I guess looking back, we've raised pretty much every 6 months, which is perhaps it tells a lot about our company in either good or bad ways. But you know, it's hard to say what the secret is. But one thing that we've always tried to keep in terms of approaching investors is really trying to think from their perspective. It's really, I think, easy for founders to think that their idea is the best. And sometimes that kind of confidence is absolutely necessary in disturbing the market. But VCs, you know, you may think that, for example, for us, the cloud market and how fast it's growing is the biggest thing that we can possibly think of. But obviously for Victor, that is not the case. VCs cover all sorts of industries that they get approached by thousands of people who wants to get their finance. And it's really important to think, okay, then if you were a VC yourself, why would you invest in your company? Some things like, you know, metrics, revenue, you know, you're an early stage startup and you may be thinking, why should I be making revenue at the moment? Shouldn't I be building a great product? Of course, these things are always true, but you have to think about, at least from our perspective, you have to understand that investor relations, which is going to get you financing, is just a vehicle. It's just a means to get the financing. So if you want to access that money, you have to understand the people that you're talking to. What are they looking for? Are they understanding your narrative enough, as much as you are? Because you may be thinking, okay, I have some metrics, I have some data about how big our market is, but that may be that just may not be enough for the investors. Our very first IR deck, now I don't know if this is right or wrong, because there is no secret to fundraising. Our very first IR deck, the very first round, was 100 pages long. Now, that may have been just us being naive or us just trying to give out as much information as possible, but the whole intent was we wanted the VC to understand the market the way we were understanding the market. So at the end of the day, that sort of information gap continues, whether you're pre-seed, seed, pre-A or Series A, because that's where we are. But it really is about, you know, understanding who you're talking to and understanding what they are not understanding about your company and why it's so great. So often that takes a lot of time to understand.
And Victor, how do you relate to that?
Yeah, I think one thing that I did want to share to if anyone's a startup founder in the audience or anyone who wants to start a company, I think fundraising is it's so unique. I don't think there's a secret sauce or a golden rule or one way of fundraising. So one thing that I wanted to share is that there's many different vehicles of funding, right? So one thing that's really big in the U.S. right now, for example, is equity financing. I think being aware that you don't have to always follow this one-way path of raising funds to build your company is one thing that you should be aware of. And so it's really helpful to talk to a lot of different founders in your immediate circle, but also founders that are outside of your circle to hear, like, one, Clint closing and closing that recent round is a really, really hopeful message, right, for me right now, because I'm also kind of preparing for our next fundraising round. It gives you hope, but it also gives you different types of perspectives, and then you as a founder eventually have to piece together your own story or your own path to getting that funding and building your company. So I think it's really important to be aware of that difference and be aware of building your own way of getting funding.
And Jeffrey, as a business veteran and executive, what advice do you have for them as they continue their fundraising rounds?
Get to know a lot of rich people. That's the best way, right?
Very true.
It actually will help you if you know a lot of rich people. It's about, as I said earlier, being honest, being frank. Don't give a lot of bluff and fluff about your story. Focus on the stage that you're in. Many startups will be in a product development stage, which means it's about an idea, it's about a market segment, and you've got to be able to convince your potential investor why that market segment makes sense and why your product will be able to achieve success in that market. And then, how you're going to be developing your product. Once you get beyond that stage, and you're really in the stage where you're starting to sell your product, you got to get your sales up. And they will look at your sales numbers and the potential based on that. And so, focus on which segment you need. Tell the right story about the segment you're in and what kind of funding you need. And build a great team. Most VCs will kind of pay attention to the story you talk about, but not that much, quite frankly. What they'll focus on is the people, whether they trust Clint, whether they trust Victor. Do they have confidence in these people to really achieve what they're saying? And that's where they'll make their decision. It's not so much on how sexy your product is, but it's how credible the person is that's telling the story. So work on building your integrity and credibility, and that will go a long way in your success.
Thank you, Jeff. And as this session comes to a close, I'd like your last thoughts on the biggest opportunities in doing business in Korea, as well as the collaborative efforts that you two gentlemen on stage have in global expansion.
I think, ultimately, I think what Jeff mentioned about cross-border, if you really are drawing the end picture and seeing your product at full scale, I think global is the obvious answer, especially for the industries like software. I think you really need to go there. Statistics about how fast the market is growing, I don't think it tells you much. Us visiting the US in San Francisco, Silicon Valley for 2 days have taught us more than about 6 months researching, reading blogs. The market is huge, and I think that alone is a huge opportunity. Obviously, Korea itself is a big market, but it is understanding more about where your customers are. And your customer more often than not, are not restricted to a single market if you really look for them. So the opportunities are huge. I really invite more companies to come to Korea, but I also suggest more Korean companies to go to the US. It's a whole different world. So.
Thank you. And Victor?
Yeah, like I said, I'm super excited to always, whenever I come to Korea, super excited to be here, and also to meet, like whether it's investors or whether it's startup founders as well. I think there's definitely a different kind of grit here. There's a hustle here that is unmatched anywhere else. Even in coming from Silicon Valley, it's a totally different culture, totally different vibe, and so I respect that and I learn a lot from that, and also like immerse myself in that and bring it back when I go back to the Bay Area. So if anyone, if you're an investor, I'd love to talk. If you're also a startup founder or wanting to start a company, I'm happy to share kind of my story with you and help you. If you're thinking about doing anything in the US, any way I can help, I'm happy to talk.
And from you, Jeffrey.
Well, the sad part about starting a company is you have to work too hard. You got to work hard, right? It takes a lot of effort, and it's a 24-hour job. So be prepared to work hard. Be prepared to be passionate about your product and passionate about what you do. Going cross-border is critical to becoming a really successful company. There was a time when you didn't need that, quite frankly. But that time is gone, and you really have to be cross-border in order to succeed. So you got to be thinking that long term as you build your team, build your product, build your market, and know that that market is not just in Korea or just in the U.S., but you got to go back and forth. And finally, I want to say, have fun. It's not worth it if you're not having fun. If it's not interesting, if it's not stimulating you, go to law school. So anyway, have fun and good luck to all of you.
Thank you all very much for your insight. It was a pleasure hosting you in today's discussion. And to summarize, AMCHAM is your vessel for cross-border collaboration. They say a ship is safe in the harbor, but ladies and gentlemen, that is not what ships were built for. Let AMCHAM be the bridge between US and Korea for your scaling up your business, as well as expanding your horizon. On behalf of AMCHAM Korea, I'd like to thank everyone in the audience today, as well as our panelists, for this special session on cross-border collaboration. Once again, my name is Sue An, and please feel free to contact me in the email address listed behind me, as well as after the session, I'll be hanging out for more opportunities on how we can get you involved in the largest international business platform in Korea. Thank you very much, and once again, come join us as we continue our U.S.-Korea Cross-Border Alliance. Thank you very much.